Welcome to Study Buddy Homeschooling. In today's session, we'll be seeing CBSE Class 10, Chapter 6 Life Processes, and the topic is respiration. So what is respiration? Respiration is a process by which glucose is completely broken down to release energy, carbon dioxide and water. So this complete breakdown of glucose to release energy, water and carbon dioxide is called respiration. This process begins in the cytoplasm of the cell. Hence it is known as cellular respiration. We all know in the previous topic that during digestion, carbohydrates are completely broken down into glucose. This glucose enters the villi of small intestine. From the villi, the glucose gets absorbed into the bloodstream and they go into the different cells. So, this respiration begins in the cells using glucose as a base material and is getting converted into energy. This respiration is classified into aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration happens in the presence of oxygen. Here, oxygen is definitely required to proceed with the respiration. In the case of anaerobic respiration, where it works in the absence of oxygen. Examples: yeast and few bacteria release energy during anaerobic respiration. They don't require oxygen for respiration. In human beings, aerobic respiration happens. That means it happens in the presence of oxygen. So, oxygen that we breathe in is used in the respiration. So, there is a difference between breathing and respiration. Breathing is mechanically taking in oxygen and releasing out carbon dioxide. Respiration is the oxygen that we take in is used to break glucose to release energy and carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide is expelled out. Breathing is much more of a mechanical process, whereas respiration is very much a chemical process. Let's see how respiration happens in cells. We all know that the base material for respiration is glucose. It is this glucose which is broken down to release energy. So, the first step begins in the cytoplasm of the cells. In the cytoplasm, there are few enzymes present which convert this glucose, which is a 6-carbon molecule. We know glucose formula is C6H12O6. So, this glucose, which is a 6-carbon molecule, gets broken down into pyruvate, which is a 3-carbon molecule with the release of some energy. So, this step happens in the cytoplasm of the cell. Here comes 3 scenarios. In the pyruvate, if oxygen supply is not there, what happens is in the cytoplasm itself, the pyruvate gets converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. So, this pyruvate conversion in the absence of oxygen gets converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide with the release of some energy. This is what happens in the yeast. Yeast, it undergoes anaerobic respiration, that is in the absence of oxygen. So, pyruvate in the absence of oxygen gets converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. So, let us see what happens if oxygen is available. So, if oxygen is available, the pyruvate molecule which is present in the cytoplasm will move to mitochondria. This is also an organelle where cellular respiration happens. So, this pyruvate, if oxygen supply is there, it moves to mitochondria where enzymes present in the mitochondria break down the pyruvate to release energy, carbon dioxide and water. So, we saw what happens when pyruvate molecule, how does it react in the absence of oxygen? In the absence of oxygen, pyruvate in the cytoplasm itself gets broken down into ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. But if oxygen supply is there in the cell, pyruvate will move to mitochondria, and in the mitochondria it gets broken down in the presence of oxygen into carbon dioxide with the release of energy in the form of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, and water. Let's see the third case here, where pyruvate is getting converted into lactic acid and energy. So you would have seen athletes, they do intense workout, and during the competition sometimes what happens is, whenever they are running or doing any sports activity, suddenly they might have muscular cramps. Why is this happening? Because their body cells, especially the cells of their muscles, would lack oxygen completely because they are in exhaustion, right, when they are working out so much. In such cases, the pyruvate gets converted into lactic acid and definitely some energy is released. But this lactic acid, which is accumulated in the muscle cells, can cause sudden cramps, sudden muscular cramps. They would not be able to proceed with the activity. This is also scenario which is found in the process of respiration. So, but this is very rare. Compared to these three, that is anaerobic respiration in the absence of oxygen, aerobic respiration in the presence of oxygen, and this lactic acid formation in the lack of oxygen, what happens is the energy released in the case of aerobic respiration, that is in the presence of oxygen, is much higher. Let's see ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. ATP is called the energy currency of the cell. Why is it called the energy currency of the cell? For all the different functions of the cells, like contraction of muscles, protein synthesis, conduction of nerve impulses or muscular movements, this energy in the form of ATP is utilized. So how is this ATP formed? The energy released during the process of respiration is used to make an ATP molecule from ADP and inorganic phosphate. So ATP is obtained from ADP, which is adenosine diphosphate, plus you add an inorganic phosphate in the presence of energy. This energy is released during the respiration. That energy is used by the ATP to combine with another phosphate to form ATP. So what happens is, if we have to break this ATP, it again gives us ADP plus phosphate with the release of some energy. What is that energy released? About 30.5 kilojoules per mole is released. So now let's see breathing and respiration in humans. Breathing, we all know, is a very mechanical process of taking in oxygen and releasing out carbon dioxide in humans. This happens through the nostrils and lungs present in our body, which is the respiratory system. We have a system called respiratory system in place. So how does this happen? Air or oxygen enters through our nostrils and it goes into the air passage or the windpipe. We all know that nose contains fine hairs. This fine hairs filters any dust particles or any other harmful substances. Not only that, the whole passage is lined by mucus. Mucus is a slimy like substance and that absorbs all the dust particles. So only the fresh pure air enters in. Then we have rings of cartilage present in the trachea. Why is this present? This acts as a support system to prevent the pathway from collapsing. So the air enters by our nostrils and enters into trachea, and from there it branches out into two branches, which is known as bronchi. It branches out as two into each one into one of the lungs, each lungs, and this bronchi is broken down into several bronchioles in both the lungs. So at the end of each bronchioles, are balloon-shaped structures known as alveoli. You can see the picture here. These are balloon-shaped structures present at the end of each bronchiole. This balloon-shaped structure is composed of very thin-walled cells. Just like villi of the small intestine, they are also very thin-walled and supplied with extensive network of blood vessels. So this is how the respiratory system looks like. So now what happens is, whatever oxygen you take in, it enters through the nose hair particles are present, mucus is present throughout the tube, and it enters trachea and bronchi, bronchioles, it enters alveoli. This alveoli is supplied with thick network of blood vessels. So oxygen enters the blood vessels and enters the bloodstream, and it goes into the respective cells wherever it is needed. Now during respiration, carbon dioxide is released. So that again, venous blood brings the carbon dioxide and again gets back to the network of blood vessels. This carbon dioxide again enters through alveoli, from alveoli to bronchioles, again to bronchi, to trachea, and CO2 is expelled out. This is the process which is involved. So breathing is a mechanical process, respiration is a cellular process where taking in of oxygen and letting out of CO2 happens. All this happens because of the respiratory system which is in place. There is always some residual volume of oxygen kept as a backup in the lungs. So they should be backup, right? In case there is a shortage of oxygen, this residual supply of oxygen is used as a backup. So only through alveoli it cannot happen. So diffusion cannot happen for longer places, right? Our bodies are large. So what happens is, our blood contains a pigment called hemoglobin. Hem means iron, globin means is a protein. This hemoglobin has a greater affinity towards oxygen. So this hemoglobin in the blood attracts oxygen, and that's how oxygen is getting transported through the blood. What happens to the carbon dioxide which is released out, which has to be expelled out? This carbon dioxide can be easily dissolved in water. We all know our blood is made up of almost 80-90% water. So the carbon dioxide gets dissolved in our blood and it's transported out. So this is how exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide happens. Hemoglobin takes in oxygen because it has greater affinity, and carbon dioxide dissolves in blood and is thrown out. But the process is same. Oxygen enters through nose, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and again CO2 is expelled out through alveoli, bronchioles, bronchi, trachea and nostrils. For any queries and clarification, please contact us at studybuddyhomeschooling@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and please do subscribe to our channel. If you have any doubts, you can post your comments in the comment section. Thank you.